Not right, I'm not left, I'm not Republican, I'm not Democrat, I'm not libertarian. I'm a human being that wants the best for the rest of.
What up, YouTube? It's Mike. We're back with another one.
Oh, Matt here.
I'm Jay.
Juno.
Juno.
And this is the Clip Farm.
This has been tough because I had stuff going on, so I couldn't watch this live. So we're right after the fact. The internet's going crazy. So I'm judging by this stupid face we're looking at. This is going to be a good one.
Oh, the internet is doing its thing for sure.
It's interneting.
Yep. Do you think I need to throw up an overlay on this one, or we should be good?
I don't know. I'm paranoid about CNN, but
we kind of got our photos over it, so it alters it.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? We got the banner,
Yeah.
we got our photos over it, so technically, and we got our logo up top. We should be good.
Okay, sending it.
Yeah.
Let's go. How's the sound? Can you guys hear it?
Yeah. You're doing a great job.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
maybe a little more volume.
High up as it'll go.
And let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
Dude, they hit him with a doozy right off the rip.
Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible.
All of it.
And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out in the position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things.
Is he reading a
That's why it's
teleprompter?
hard to make sure.
Why is their podium so small?
And we're going to make sure that we reduce the
penis
price
level.
of housing. We're going to make sure we 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap.
What is he doing with his hands?
Greed can't take over.
He's holding himself up.
And I was looking at corporate greed is the reason why we
that thing like a madman.
In addition
Never
to
know what to
that,
do with my
in a
hands.
situation where if you had to look
Biden.
at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, there things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as opposed to $400. No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. In a situation is making
All the drugs you can handle.
available to everybody, all Americans. So we're working to bring down the
For
price.
instance, I just got shot up backstage.
Right.
Thank you, President Trump.
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them back a country where the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you. President Biden?
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest
81 another million Americans agree.
You know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began. Since Herbert
Is he
Hoover.
reading a
The
teleprompter?
idea that he did something that was significant.
He's straight up
for the
reading.
military. You know
they gave him the
when he was
questions
president,
before.
we were still killing people in Afghanistan.
Probably.
Yeah, they
He
did that
nothing
with
about
Hillary
that.
too in
When he was
2016.
president, we were still
Yeah.
find ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
Bullshit.
Lie.
President
Mm.
Trump,
Afghanistan,
I wanna
you forget
follow
about that,
up.
Joe.
Gosh.
Am I allowed to respond to him?
Can we bring that
Well, I'm
up?
going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8 years, under both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had.
Drew.
We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to come in here from prisons, jails, and mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. Now, what I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million.
They pay 38%, Joe.
In a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system.
We do need to take care of our elderly.
We're able to make every single solitary
Yeah.
person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with.
Look at Trump looking at him.
Yeah.
Any questions?
Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people, they cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Yep.
Thank you, President Trump. Tana?
This is the first presidential election.
They cut
since
Biden
the
off. Did you see
Supreme
that?
Court overruled.
Yeah.
This morning, the court ruled on yet
What?
another abortion case, temporarily allowing
That's probably
emergency
2 minutes
abortions
there
to
that we
remain
Oh,
in
because there was a
Idaho,
2-minute delay.
despite
Yep.
that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump,
That could have been a
you
whole
take
2 minutes.
for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However,
Wow.
the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex, but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, and getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now.
Yeah.
And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan,
The
I
state
believe
thing.
in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby.
That is a fact. Our
What happened is we
governor
brought
did
it
say
back
that.
to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
I feel like Trump's been getting coached up.
The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have.
Joe, you've had 3 years. You could have done it again.
6 weeks.
Right.
You don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by
What is he talking about?
coming in to
He
talk
went
about
off
that.
track.
But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses.
Yeah, the
brothers,
immigrants
sisters.
you let in. You
But
Yeah.
it's just ridiculous.
What does that have to do
And they
with?
can do nothing about it.
He's trying to
They
put
try
him
to
off.
rush
He
them
started.
to our state
He started to
line.
talk about immigrants, and then he brought it back
There
to
have been many
family-related
young
shit.
women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place
I
anywhere
wonder
in
if
the
they
world.
took some out there.
And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a
Yeah.
terrible thing.
And
As
that's
far as the
facts,
abortion is
daily.
concerned, it
Facts.
is now back with the
Yep.
states. The states
100.
are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states. I'll let you do that. This is the same
Look at his
topic.
face,
7
yo.
states
Oh my
have
gosh.
no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to
He looks like
terminate
he's
a
seeing the
pregnancy?
world
I
for the
support
first time
Roe v.
and
Wade,
learning all this
which had
information.
3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run.
Again, Joe,
That's
you've
what
been
you gotta
president
do.
for 3
And
years.
if
You
I'm
could have
elected, I'm going to
fixed
restore
this.
Roe v. Wade.
Yeah.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing
Murder.
to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the
Biden
9th
looks like
month
he's about to
and
cry.
kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen. Democrat
know
or
where he
Republican,
is.
nobody wants it to happen.
He just tried to yell at Trump,
That is
and his
simply
mic was
not
cut.
true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only
Yes,
woman's
it
life is in
does.
danger. She's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen.
What
But we
Trump
are
said
not
there
for
was
late-term
100%
abortion,
true.
Period. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can
That's
do whatever,
murder.
depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51
that's
years, that was the
disgusting.
law. 51
Killing
years,
babies.
constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes credit for taking it away.
Roe v. Wade was never constitutional. Constitutional scholars will argue that.
And the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks. Something
That
very,
never
very
happened,
conservative.
Joe.
If you're going to sign that bill, I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and
Oh,
border
they just cut
security.
Trump's
President
mic.
Biden, a
Wow.
record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases,
That
causing
2-minute
real
delay,
safety and security concerns.
They definitely were
Given
doing
that,
some
why should
tomfoolery
voters
there.
trust you
Mhm.
to solve this crisis?
And we don't know when they're
Because we
doing
worked
it
very
either.
hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly, by the way, the Border Patrol endorsed me, endorsed my position.
No, they
That is
didn't.
We
false.
find ourselves in a situation
They
where
did not
when he was
endorse you,
president, he
Joe.
was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families were separated. That's
Mike,
not the right way to
check
go.
your IG.
What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get
You
the
wanna put
total
that up?
ban on the
Yeah, give me
total
a second.
initiative relative to what we're going to do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he
More
said at
asylum
the end of
officers?
that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we have the safest border in the history of our country.
I was a bit confused myself.
All he had to do was leave it. All he had to do is leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country to people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all
Yes, you
over
did,
the
Joe.
world. Not just
Remember
in
the
South
flood the
America,
border
all over
comments
the
and speeches?
Cartel, drugs,
all over
human
the world.
trafficking.
And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, who endorsed me for president. Brandon,
Facts.
speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you, President
caravans.
Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across the border is one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person coming in his administration, killed three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying
Repeating things over and over. That is a stage of or a sign of mid-stage dementia.
There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Stealing
Just 1 second.
American
he said
jobs.
We killed three people.
Mm-hmm.
The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just borders, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including
the price of bacon went down.
Hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies,
that means they're in Scranton too there, Joe.
Our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime.
You don't live there anymore.
Migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these three incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, or we have to get them out fast, because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half. Because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. Every single one. For example,
Nope.
veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them
that
now
is
have
true.
insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I
stole a
cemetery he
speech.
refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star
Smartest man he
general,
knows.
and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine.
Joe's son
It's
looks like a
failing
sucker of some
many
sort.
These magazines. He made that up. He put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this.
Wasn't
who would say
when
I'm at a
Biden was
cemetery or I'm
inaugurated,
talking
didn't
about our
the
veterans?
military
Because
like turn
nobody's
their
taking
back to
better
him?
care. I'm so glad this came up. And
Trump.
he brought
Yeah,
it
we
up.
won't go into that here.
There's nobody that's
Okay.
taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists
Imagine
are
looking
talking.
like he wants
It's the
to go
same
over
thing.
and take
51
Trump
intelligence
behind the
agents
barn.
that the laptop was Russia disinformation.
The
It
laptop.
wasn't. It came from the Sun Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation.
That was on the laptop.
Suckers and losers.
That
he
was
should
on the
apologize
laptop.
to me right now.
Among many other
4-star
photographs.
general standing to your side was
He
on
said
your
he should
staff.
apologize
Said
to me
you
right
said
now.
it. Period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home. And
Joe
their
did
families,
Joe
and
did
equip
approve the
them when they
PACT
go to
Act,
war.
and that did make a
That's what
difference.
we're
So
doing.
I will give
That's
him
what the
that.
VA is
Yes,
doing
he
now.
did do that.
They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
Let's move to the topic of foreign policy.
Ooh, they
I
cut
wanna
off
begin
Trump
with
there.
Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin says he'll only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him.
Yeah.
They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They
What do you
can't
say to
stand
that,
him.
Mike?
So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just
I mean, I
about
can't
any
speak
of them.
for veterans that are
And that's
currently
based on every single
serving,
bit of
but,
information. As far as Russia
spent a
and
lot of time
Ukraine,
at the American
if we had
Legion,
a real president, the president
and
that
there's
knew,
definitely a
that
clear
was
winner
respected
in
by
who
Putin,
they favor.
he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned, and so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired
Vinman,
those
running
generals.
for
No
fucking shit in
general
Virginia.
got
Trying to
fired
talk,
for the most
and the mic fucking
embarrassing
muted.
moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers.
95
38
billion.
soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind too. We left
Yep.
American citizens.
9,000 people.
When Putin
I just
saw
looked it
that,
up.
he said,
Yep.
you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream.
And then
I
wanted to
talked
charge
about
them
his
to be
dream.
rescued
The
and
difference
flown
is
home.
He never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because Iran was broke with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything, no money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
Fact.
President Biden?
I've never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked
Using big
American
words now.
troops cause brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing
Brain
about it.
damage,
This is
right.
when he was president. They attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want and do whatever you want.
Trump told Trump.
And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never said
you
that.
for 1 minute. I just want to go back to my original
What the
question,
hell?
which is
Fake
are
news.
Putin's terms acceptable?
He
definitely cut his
Keeping
mic.
the territory
Yeah.
He
in
definitely
Ukraine.
cut his mic
No, they're
again.
not acceptable.
Mhm.
But look, this is a war.
And
that
how much
never
money
should
has
have
gone to
started.
Ukraine?
A leader in this war. He
About
let everybody
200
along.
billion.
He's
Yeah.
given 200
Billion with the B.
Oh, look, you called it.
to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot
There
of
we
money.
go.
I don't think there's
Yeah.
ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to
Unbelievable.
this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not
One
knocking
man
anything.
ever, I think.
I'm only saying
Mhm.
the money that we're spending on this war, and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled.
Oh,
People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President Biden, you have a minute.
Lots going to happen on day one.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and
2016
walks
election,
away,
weren't
by
they
the way,
saying that Russia
all that
wasn't
money we give
a
Ukraine
threat to the
from
world?
weapons we make here in the United States, we give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why
No,
we're
they
strong.
haven't. Not even
Thank
kind
you.
of
Moving on
close.
to the Middle East.
No.
In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands
Yeah,
of
NATO's
Palestinians
taking
and
the
created
U.S.
a
out for
humanitarian
dinner and
crisis
making
in
us
Gaza.
cover the bill.
Yeah.
President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not
How much
released
billions go
the
there?
remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional leverage will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Which has 3 stages to it.
Repeating shit
The
again.
first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions.
Trade hostages
third
for a
phase is
ceasefire.
No, the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one, they're the only ones standing out. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing
I have
Israel with all
questions
the
on
weapons
that.
they need when they need them. And by the way, I'm the
I
guy
think
that
Trump's ready to
organized
fire back on
the
this
world
one.
against Iran
Yeah.
when they had a full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed. And
Actually, 7 were there,
we
Joe.
saved
Sorry.
Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued.
He's got to be
We
careful with
continue
his
to
words
send our
here because a
experts
lot of his
and
base
untold
is
people
supporting
to how they
Palestine
will get
too.
Hamas.
Mhm.
We did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for
agree with that,
using
Joe.
certain weapons among population centers.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of
As a
NATO said
fact.
Trump did the most
Yeah.
incredible
Yes, he
job
did.
I've ever seen.
Yeah, they were finally
They
paying
wouldn't
their
have any. They were going out of business. We were spending
share.
almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Oh
President
man!
Biden, you have a minute.
Whoa.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who
Whoa.
wants to get out of NATO. You're going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we
Yes,
have
pull out
our
of NATO.
strength
It's a
lies in
useless
our allies as
organization.
well. It
Yeah,
may be a
it
big
is.
ocean, but were we ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea
No
what the hell he's
proof that
talking about.
Putin would
And
go
by the way, I got
further.
50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including
Not
Japan
excusing
and
him,
South
but-
Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend
the
all the
point.
money.
Palestinians have
So they
rejected
kill us
the
on
two-state
trade. I
solution
made great
7
trade
times.
deals with the European nations because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this. I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President Trump, I want to ask you about January 6, 2021. After you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a
Here comes the
documentary
truth. About to hit him right in the
filmmaker, they
fucking
say.
mouth.
But she's saying, oh, no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down. The mayor of D.C.
Muriel Bowser.
They turned it down.
Yeah.
I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
That camera guy right there, he can feel it too.
He encouraged those folks to Capitol, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues and Republicans as well to do something, call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll not forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation, many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to
in jail.
Out, and now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
This is your brain on drugs. People that are so you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities. You go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed.
That's
when
facts.
you look at all of the, they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard.
Yep.
They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said
Chaz or
about
Chop, I think
this
is what they
whole
called it.
subject is so off.
Yep.
Peaceful, patriotic. One other thing, the Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and
Is that
Democrats, all
Antifa?
Democrats, they destroyed
was.
and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were
Yep.
right.
We remember
We
you,
were
Liz
right.
Cheney.
And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to
Which,
jail
by
for
the
that.
way,
If a
is a
Republican
crime.
did that, they go to
Thank
jail.
you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices. turned
I'm
over
sorry,
desks,
they didn't kill anybody.
turned
The
over
only person
statues.
killed was
The
Ashley
idea
Babbitt, and that was
that
by a
those
cop,
people are
in
patriots.
a White House
Come on.
cop.
When I
Facts.
asked him the first two debates we had, first time around,
Capitol
I
Police
said,
cop.
will you
Yeah.
denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main
How they
political
worded
opponent
that
is
is so
standing on
fucked
stage
up.
with you tonight.
That's not how
Can you
Right.
clarify
the
exactly
context
what
and
it
how he said
means
it.
about feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level.
Facts.
His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted
Yeah.
before, but his justice
Just the
department
beginning.
let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death cause at
classified documents with his Corvette.
Telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo.
Sorry.
We're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with his son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before.
No one's actually done it until Biden.
Look at all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about?
What?
You have the morals.
I hope they let Trump.
Sir.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge, a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken
how many millions in a weekend?
Millions of dollars came pouring in because the public
over
knows it's a
over
scam.
100 million.
And it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know
What kind of
about
ridiculous
what he's done,
question
yes,
is that?
the more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face.
Yeah, you know, because you set most of them in motion.
I do know that's a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas?
Stuck on stupid.
What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches. And
Snopes literally debunked this shit last week.
Back in Germany, and the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? This is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know
Didn't Joe Biden go to that Bird guy's funeral? The head guy of the KKK?
American democracy.
Yep, the Grand Dragon.
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration.
Like somebody smacked him in the face with a freaking dog.
Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance.
He was so confused.
He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst presidency in the history of our country. We shouldn't be having a debate about it.
And Joe is feeling the pain right now.
This is what Trump's doing to him right now. Just
every anchor has debunked it.
punching
and
an old dead
the other
fish.
Day it came out. It was debunked. It's a nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea
It has
that
been debunked,
somehow
Joe.
that's
You
when I ran.
effing liar.
I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people.
He's
coming
reading
out
a
of that
teleprompter. They got somebody typing that shit as fast as they can.
Carrying those torches.
Yep.
He didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the
I have to
idea
pause.
that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse
There's a photograph from that day.
This time. So why?
40
Why
is
are they not
44.
endorsing-
Yeah, that's
they serve
incorrect,
him.
man.
Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Are we taking a break too?
We can. I will take this down. I'll make sure I get it back to where it goes. That was a trip.
Trump's cooking them right now.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt.
Yeah.
Are we
All right, we're back. We took a few minute break, but we were just discussing that we found it interesting how they're playing with the 2-minute delay and what they're doing.
Yeah.
So yes, they've definitely edited a few things out.
Yeah, like they're gonna show Trump's like goofy face when he's just listening, and they show that to try and make him look crazy. But then you see when Biden starts drifting off into la la land, they cut to a solitary shot of Trump.
Yeah.
Definitely manipulating this shit.
Yep.
And I don't know if we were able to see it earlier, but this came. The Border Patrol Union president said, to be clear, we have never and will never.
I saw that on Instagram too.
Yep. I saw that
It's on
right
X.
after the debate
They made
was
sure
live.
that came out live.
I knew that was true. It was just it was just good. It's good that they came out and put that on X, so that's not edited or nothing. That's just a screenshot from X.
Yeah. And look at Biden's eyes. He keeps looking away, and he's like, it looks like he's reading a teleprompter. I bet you they got somebody off in the cut typing something on a laptop, responding as fast as they got somebody that knows how to type pretty well.
Well,
they're just going in.
I'm just saying, if he is reading off a teleprompter, it's got to be like about the size of that blue screen behind them both there.
Yeah.
Because he can't. Yeah, he can't read that far.
No.
Yeah, and Trump keeps looking over there too and stuff.
So
yeah, who knows what's in that room too? Like, there's no audience, right?
That's speculation on our part, but at the same time, it does seem kind of suspicious.
I think they're in the CNN building, aren't they? The headquarters.
They're
studio someplace.
Yeah, they're down there in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, let's get back into it. I think I moved it up to where they start after their break.
And you'd certainly face again in the second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and Black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
I'm shocked they hit him with that question too, because they hit him with some facts.
The fact of the matter is, there's more small Black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number 2, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number 3, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. And in addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice Black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce Black child care costs. I cut them in half in half. We're going to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure.
I don't think so.
Because when you provide that child care protection,
You notice he ducked that question about
economic growth,
being in jail.
Can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've
his 1994 crime bill is responsible for a lot of those
You have
Americans
49
behind
seconds
bars.
left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided
The
for
inflation that you caused?
Yeah,
Right.
Family,
Actually, it's
first-time
right
home
about
buyers
that.
should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where
At an
all those
8
Black
or
families and those
9%
Black
interest
individuals
rate.
who provided, had to take out student loans that were ballooning. That if they were engaged in nursing,
Look at Trump cooking. You can tell he's about to get him.
Anything having to do with
Yeah, he's talking about money. You're talking about shit Trump knows.
For 10 years, and their student debt.
His
All
language.
the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that, and we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's and his legislation very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just
Not
about
let him give it
everybody.
anything.
It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live.
Damn right.
They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money being thrown out the window. He caused inflation.
100%.
As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs.
Take you behind the woodshed.
It could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy.
We were in the middle of a
That's
pandemic,
why there was no
Joe.
inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of
And they
millions of
still didn't
jobs
let
for
people work
individuals
for a while.
who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance.
The mandates.
We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again. And they're going to try again if they win.
You lock people in their houses and told them they can't go to work.
That we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has.
Bullshit.
We're providing for
Wrong.
This guy that ran on
making sure
defund the
people are
police and shit.
shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in
I don't know
inflation,
that
he
Biden did,
caused
but a lot of
it by
Democrats
his
did.
Tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the
Mount
climate crisis.
Feezus.
2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying
I don't know
wildfires,
if that has anything to do
stronger
with
hurricanes,
weather
and rising
modifications
sea
that the
levels.
governments are doing, like
Former
cloud seeding.
President Trump, you
Not to
vowed
mention
to
people
end
couldn't
your
pay their air
opponent's
conditioning bill.
climate initiatives, but will you take
That's gone up
any
too.
action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the Black population is horrible, including the fact that for
When a
10
police
years he
officer
called
was
them
killed by
super
one of
predators.
his
We can't- in the
migrants,
1990s,
he
we
was
can't
doing a
forget
fundraiser with
super
Obama while
predators was
Trump
his
went
name.
to the
And he called
fucking
it-
funeral.
and they've
Funeral,
taken great
yep,
offense
yep.
at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically Black colleges and universities,
Yeah.
where I funded them and got them all funded, and the
Yeah, they don't pay
opportunity
back
zones
money
with-
every year
with-
either.
As you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are Blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the Black population. because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people
And
pouring
natives.
into the country, and they're going to take the jobs. And it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air. And we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy.
I hope he brings up the birds.
And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental
He used to rant about
numbers
birds. It was
ever.
hilarious.
And my top environmental people gave me
Going
that
into the
statistic
windmills.
just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true.
That's a weird flex, but
You're so funny. Oh my gosh.
Legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord.
That was a $1 trillion a year investment on the American people that did jack shit.
There's no way back.
The GDP was $3 trillion.
Yeah, if I would have allowed other nations to ride for
damn
free.
thing about it. You must undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States.
Yep.
And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants
Oh my
coming in,
gosh.
they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
That's a fact.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones. We're not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to? The United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress.
China?
By 2035, we will have cut
Who
pollution
actually
in half.
contributes to
We've
35%
made
of the
significant progress,
pollution.
and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people to learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that
Cobalt
he has
mines.
the biggest heart
Oh,
of people
right,
really
the
concerned
cobalt
about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So
Joe
every
doesn't
day,
have any
millions
clue
of
where he is.
Americans
You know
struggle
that.
just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President
They cut
Biden,
off-
if nothing
they
is
cut him
done
off
to
there.
Social Security,
Yep.
seniors
I'm sure he
will
said
see
something
their
along those
benefits
lines.
cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share.
Okay.
Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm
6%?
proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%. So
What-
no one
what?
after, I would not raise that
bullshit.
cost of bullshit.
Bullshit.
To pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent. But the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks
Trump's standing there like, I have to do nothing. He's embarrassing himself.
Yeah, that's true.
Both times. And that's what, and if you
He
look
knows
at
it too.
The program put forward by
As
the
Sun Tzu says,
caucus that he supports is in
as
fact
Sun Tzu
one
says,
to
when your
cut it as
enemy
well.
is in the middle of
The
making a
idea
mistake,
we
let
don't
them.
need to protect our seniors is
Stand in
ridiculous.
the
You
way.
don't want to talk numbers and
And by the way,
statistics with Trump,
the
man.
American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, we're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is we're in a situation where we talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
A whole $15,000 towards what's that? One semester?
All my life, I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen that he can look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired.
Yeah, General
Vindman. He's the
Vindman.
one that acknowledged that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one.
Because he was a
Number two,
traitor to this country is why he got
We're
fired.
going to be in a situation where
and a liar.
all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs.
Joe said illegal aliens.
The fastest growing economy in the world.
Yeah.
They took our jobs.
They're not going
We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession. And inflation.
We're in a recession, Joe.
And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
Yep, Lloyd Austin.
He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country.
Jimmy
Now all
Carter
of a sudden
thinks
he's
you
trying
for
to get a
taking
little
that
tough
title.
on the border. He came out with a nothing,
bet he is
a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit. A little bit.
I think
like
Obama was
this
pretty
much.
happy
It's
too.
insignificant.
Yeah.
He wants voters. He wants our
Like,
country
thank
to be
goodness.
destroyed, or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America.
Bullshit.
Yeah, because you're giving everybody money.
The finest military
Right.
in the history of the world. The finest in the history
After
of
you
the
give them the
world.
money, then.
No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody. Number one. Number
Really?
two, the idea
Okay.
we're talking about worst presidents.
No one
I
wants to
wasn't
screw with
joking.
us.
Look it up. Go
There are a whole
online.
bunch of fucking Russian
159
guys down in
Trump
Cuba.
58, don't hold me
Yeah.
to the exact
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
Yeah.
Presidential historians. They
Yeah,
have
why
meetings.
fight them
They
when you
vote.
can just
I
befriend them
know.
and they'll give you shitloads of money?
One
Yeah.
through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's
Not
what they
even
voted.
remotely
The
true,
idea
Joe.
that
Sorry.
he's doing anything to deal with child care. He did
Look how
very
dilated his
nothing
pupils
with
are.
child care.
Yeah.
We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should
Damn.
significantly increase the
He's
availability
straight reading.
of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President
child care
Biden.
facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you
Cut
do
him
to make
off.
health care more affordable if you want to
Ran out of time.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best.
You should have been in
Nobody's
there.
ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10%
Just everything
tariff.
that we have to spend
Everything
our money
coming
on
into
went
the
up by
country. You know what
30%.
I'm going to say?
Yeah.
That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported.
It's $11,400.
He's in a situation where
It's $11,400 per household, Joe.
He's somehow
Thanks to
helped
your-
middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you.
Everything's
Now
gone
you
up.
want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two,
free up
you
people.
have
People can't
not
even afford
made
fast food anymore.
Any contact, any
crazy.
any progress.
Yeah.
I actually ate at
China.
Five Guys the other day. It was
You had
cheaper than
the lowest trade
McDonald's.
deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you,
We're at the
President Biden.
highest. You lost
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your
many
term, it went
news.
up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President
Yeah, I
Trump,
think
despite the
Obama
efforts that
or,
both of you
Biden's
have
done
made,
something too
more than
there, 'cause,
100,000 Americans are dying
you
from
be
overdoses,
sniffing on something.
primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Oh, addiction.
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China.
I don't know why he's
He
looking
gets
at it
paid
like
by
that's
China. He's a
surprising.
Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China.
He's looking at his
We have-
people like,
he's afraid to deal with
this
them or
true?
something. But you notice he never took out my tariffs because we
Wait, all that money I
I
sent to Ukraine made things worse?
He never took them away. He can't because it's
No,
too much money.
we printed that. It's okay.
So we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut
They've been
the
telling him this
tariffs
whole
because-
time. You've been doing a great
because it's
job,
too
Joe.
much money.
Sign here.
But he's got the largest deficit
Pretty
in the
much.
history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Keep them away
Jack, we were
from
doing
Joe
very well
Biden's
at
son.
addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country in every way. And then we had to get tough, and it was the drugs pouring across the border were it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low, because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen.
Children too.
At numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border.
Oh, big expensive
And it costs a lot of money.
Trump had
That
a
was part of
dog.
this deal we put together, this bibipartisan deal. More fentanyl
Borders were
machines,
safe.
more be able to detect.
Should have had one of those fucking machines at the White House.
Yeah, let's put one of those machines at the border crossing, but no one's crossing the border at the crossing. They're crossing through the fucking river.
Republican Congress said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill.
Can't chase people.
We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico.
And it
He
does.
ended
He's
catch
talking
and
about
release.
cutting it
I
off
made
at
it
the
catch and
source.
release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage, we always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
It depends.
First of all, I spent half my career being
that was crappy, Mike. That was really crappy.
In politics, I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that look at the record. Look at what I've done. What? Horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing.
Is he answering the question?
A lot of people.
No, he's just randomly nonsense. Has nothing to do with anything.
The market. We invented those chips. And we
He's talking about computer chips.
He was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product.
Trump with the eye roll.
I went to South Korea.
I missed it.
Samsung to invest billions of
He's
dollars
like,
here in the
oh,
United
like
States.
this, and holding his
And then,
eyes and shit.
guess what? Those fabs they call to build these chips, those fabs
trying not
pay
to
over
bust out laughing.
$100,000. Don't need a college degree for them, and there's billions.
He did a rally before
about
this
$40
too.
billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow
Oh my gosh.
we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most successful country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us, all of our allies, and our those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
That was pretty funny.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up,
Send
you
love
will be
letters to
82
Kim
at
Jong-un.
the end of your
That was
second
funny.
term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about
Trump
your
made Kim
capabilities?
Jong-un his little bitch, dude.
Cognitive tests. I
Rocket
aced them,
Man.
both of them, as you know. We made it
Calm
public.
down, little
He
Rocket
took
Man.
none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
I'm surprised Trump didn't bring up the fact that they said he's unfit to stand trial.
35 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
You're definitely handicapped, Joe.
He just admitted
100%
being handicapped.
Think you can do it?
That's how many
Well, at least
depends he
they
carried
can
with
do
him
it.
on the 18 holes. The 6
I
depends.
was 8 handicap, 8.
6.
But I have
Never.
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
He can't even keep it straight. He just said
President
8.
Trump, we're going to turn
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you. Will you
Trump said,
pledge
yeah,
tonight
never.
that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time,
Right.
and
Only 'cause
also my
AOC
statement
just
that I
last
made
week
in
was
the
calling
Rose
for
Garden, you would
violence.
say it's one of the strongest
Oh,
statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said,
It's the
it was
truth.
her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear.
Yep.
But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all and requires response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who would impressed with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything.
He hasn't
they
blinked
step
yet.
up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed.
That's true.
We're
He
needed
hasn't.
to protect the world.
Yeah,
because
he
our own
has
safety
not.
is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go
What
ahead
the
and
heck?
take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
He still isn't
President
blinking.
Trump, as I come back to you for
Yeah, he
a
hasn't
follow-up,
blinked.
That's
the question
crazy.
was,
Is that like a side effect of a medicine? We should Google that real quick.
Yeah.
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play
Dude,
games.
he is not blinking.
He took nothing from me.
I looked it up. It said cocaine.
I'm going to take the whole thing from this man right here.
They did find some in the
That's a
White
word.
House. We might know
Never
who
seen
it is.
Maybe it wasn't Hunter Stash.
And he's going to take Ukraine.
Wow.
And you
Have
asked
to-
me a question.
have to change that
before,
picture
did you do
some.
this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people.
This
It's
dude
so
doesn't
sad.
blink.
They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous.
Look at how much
cities
Trump
with
is blinking,
golden
right?
domes that are
Right.
1,000
Like a
years
normal
old,
person.
all
Yeah.
because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never.
Bro, I
attacked.
can't stop. I can't
President
unnotice
Trump's
that
question
now.
was, will you
There.
accept the results of the election?
That
What
was
if we're
minutes
all
ago.
just blinking
Yes
at
or
the
no,
exact
please?
same time as
If
him
it's
so
a
we don't
fair
notice?
and legal
Maybe
and good
that's the
election,
Democratic argument. I can hear it coming out of the White House tomorrow. That's going to be their excuse.
Yeah.
But the fraud
CNN.
and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America
There's a reason.
said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to provoke this
Except for all the
lie
voting fraud
about
that's
somehow
been
there's
being
all this
improved in
misrepresentation,
courts.
all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all.
And fraud
And I
has
tell
been
you what,
proven
I
since.
doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accepted anything, you can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more of
Played right
the
to a
CNN
CNN
presidential debate live from
talking
Georgia.
point.
Oh, I'm good.
All right, we're back. All right, I think I got it at the end.
The race over the next 5 months. Back to Atlanta now.
Candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody even making
You ran on that last time and did
$400,000 had
nothing.
a single penny increase in their taxes and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic.
He's just regurgitating the shit from 2020.
Now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America.
That doesn't tax us, Joe.
For example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability.
How dare he try to make money for the country?
Negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along.
This is like the old guy at the dinner table reading off his medical history to you. You're like, dude, I don't care. I just want to fucking pass me the salt, my guy. Pass me the salt.
People have the child care. We're going to make sure we'll do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever.
And then we left $95 billion in
Ukraine
Afghanistan.
Should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you.
Universities all across the country.
And they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves. And they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts.
I would rather gouge my eyes out with a rusty razor than listen to those people.
Oh, my goodness.
So what did y'all think of that?
Oh, that was a shit show.
Yeah.
Horrible. Like the world just seen that. Like the world just seen that.
Yeah.
I find it interesting because we're recording this about 2 or 3 hours after the debate. So we didn't watch this really ahead of time, but what's crazy is the internet's a buzz of the only thing they're talking about is that brief shit about the golfing.
Can we pull that up real quick? Our short about it. Oh man, the fucking internet is undefeated right now. A whole ass presidential debate, and they're like mad about a golf game.
Well, I personally it pissed me off, but made me laugh at the same time. Biden bringing up Charlottesville and saying, "Oh, Trump said he supports people. There's fine people on both sides." Well, I'm sorry, but Snopes debunked that last week, 7 years late. But thank you, Snopes. Yeah. You actually did something good for a change, even if it was late. And CNN actually ran this story. So Tapper and the other ladies from Fox, I believe. But they just let that slide. It's like, come on, this is a provable lie.
Yeah.
And you're not going to bother correcting.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is what the internet's this is what the internet's abuzz with. We'll play this in
championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards.
Yes. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6.
You are handicapped, Joe.
Reason why I got his handicap.
I'm happy to play golf if you can.
It's clear as day, my guy.
Think you can do it?
The court seemed to think
a
so.
Handicap of all.
I was an 8 handicap. Yeah. 8,
6, and then 8. And
but I had, you know,
I've
seen this way.
He can keep his own story.
President Trump.
Let's not
act like children.
You are a child. Oh my God.
Enjoying the show. Enjoy the show, guys.
Oh my God.
Shenanigans.
Yeah, we got to do some research into him not blinking shit, because that's just creepy as hell.
It is.
Yeah, he went long stretches without blinking. I didn't notice until he had the eyes of Large Marge from Pee Wee Herman and shit, but he went a good chunk of that. He went a good chunk of that without blinking.
Yeah. You should put a timer on it next time.
Oh man. I'm pretty sure his son hooked him up with his plug though, so you know.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Maybe it wasn't Hunter's.
We really need to see whose DNA was on that bag of Coke found in the White House.
I'm sure they all know. In there. Yep.
Oh boy. Well, with that being said, hold
on, I got something real quick. I took a couple things away from that debate. The fact that he said that the Border Patrol is also in support of him when they've literally been fighting and begging them for help for 3.5 years.
Yep.
So that was a blatant lie.
Yep.
Then the guy that ran on defund the police and all that shit literally is trying to say he's for the cops and all that shit.
Yep.
Blatant lie. Yep. Like, dude's just a hypocrite and a liar, man. Like, he's not with it. Like, so that's what I took away from it.
Good.
Oh my goodness.
Good points.
Yep. That was we can keep diving. Well, we're gonna have plenty more of these, so
yeah.
It's only a matter of time before the Democrats decide that old Sleepy Joe doesn't have it and they're gonna pull out somebody else.
Yeah.
See, but they're in panic mode. The Democrats are in panic mode right now after this absolute shit show.
Yeah, they're all going after each other now. I would have paid to see the reaction of the Texas governor when he said the Border Patrol is
well,
Greg Abbott.
That tweet put out by the Border Patrol happened like minutes after Biden said that on the debate.
Yeah. He literally sued him over razor wire because he put up razor wire and threatened to use the military. Like, oh my God.
Biden has sued Texas and Arizona over razor wire containers that they've used to block the rivers on this side, a floating barrier that they put down the middle of the river, and allowing their own police to arrest the illegals and deport them themselves.
Yeah. They should have called Florida because the Santas would have sent crocodiles and alligators to patrol the river. But that's a bit extreme. That's just a bit extreme, but he would have did it.
Hey,
we'll handle it.
Yeah, from what I understand, they did throw some alligators or crocodiles in the Rio.
It sounds pretty Florida man. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh boy,
we got plenty to spare.
Nice.
the next couple months is just going to be so much fun on this channel.
Oh yeah,
we're here for it.
Man.
Yep.
Trump has
Be ready.
fentanyl dogs, and DeSantis has crocodiles and alligators.
Joe has machines that he can't afford.
Right.
That he can't afford and are only at the borders. Whereas, like I was saying at the time, you know, the dog's portable. It can actually chase the guy with the drugs down.
And it's not even like they're stopping at checkpoints anyway. They're just walking across the border.
Yeah.
There's no checkpoints. So where are you gonna put the machine, Joe? They're not going to your checkpoints.
Yep, you got it.
Yep.
And the executive order is only temporary, and it's 3.5 years late.
Yeah, I love all this stuff about I'm gonna fix the taxes. That's something that they only say during election time because they didn't do shit about none of that.
Yeah,
Joe also ducked that question about all the black people in jail because a huge large majority of them are from his 1994 crime bill, and if you don't if you don't believe me, please look up the 1994 crime bill. Look who wrote it, look who endorsed it, and look at what he said.
Yep.
Joe Biden, primary author and sponsor.
Yeah, if that were a Republican that said that shit, even back then, they'd be public enemy number 1 today.
Yeah.
Like even if it was from way back then.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy how they flipped this shit.
Well, they're still holding the war on drugs against Reagan. I mean, yes, the war on drugs.
Technically, he did engage that. He started it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
For all of us, and we look forward to the next one.
I can't wait. It's gonna be great.
Me either.
It's gonna be huge.
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 All right.
Huge.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Hit that like.
Maybe hit that subscribe.